Hello lovelies, welcome to Narc Free Formula. My name's Freedom. Thank you for joining me. Today's episode I want to talk about the top 10 reasons why arguing with a narcissist is so confusing. But as always, before I start, can I remind you to like my video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. That bit's really important. All right, lovelies, let's get down to it. So I've got some notes. The top 10 reasons why arguing with a narcissist is so confusing. Number 1, when they start an argument, it is never about what they say it's about. So what they're arguing about, it's never about that. Never, never, never. It's always about something that's hidden and unknown to you. Excuse me 1 second. So when you are in the middle of, arguing as though your life depended upon it, when you are thinking, if we don't resolve this, my whole relationship is doomed, in actual fact, you're just playing along with the game. There is usually 2 things going on. It's either that they just need some fuel, and this is one of the quickest kind of pick-me-ups, because they get to be abusive, they get to make you cry, they get to be mean, they get to, have you grovel and plead and, to feel powerful, essentially. And the other thing that's usually going on is that they've got somewhere else that they want to be. So they need to create an argument so they can leave and go where it is that they want to be. So it's never about what you think you're arguing about. So the topic, it's never about that. Number 2, it's always out of proportion. So, for example, a narcissist can rage at you over something so insignificant and minute. The way you looked at him across the dinner table, the fact that you accidentally woke him up in the middle of the night, that you didn't ask him something. I mean, they can overreact and blow things all out of proportion because, once again, 2 things going on here. One, it's often not about what you think it's about, and they're holding onto some resentment, and some, there's some kind of built up feelings that they've got going on towards you, and not good feelings. As I said, feelings like resentment. So they've got these kind of feelings, and they just want to be able to let rip, basically, let you have it. They want to say what they want to say. Or the second thing is, they just feel shitty and they just want a whipping boy, and you're it. So they are quite literally waiting for you to say the wrong thing, just waiting for it so that they can turn around and metaphorically lay the boot in. I mean, sometimes it actually does end up in laying the boot in for some people. And obviously, if you're in a situation where there is violence, physical violence with a narcissist, you need to leave. That stuff's just not negotiable. All right, lovelies. Number 3. Why is it so hard to argue with a narcissist? Because they change the topic. So for 1 minute, for 1 minute you're talking about arguing about, I don't know, something. Just say you're arguing about him and his friends. Him spending too much time with his friends, and not enough time with the family, for example. And then mid-argument, it will be swung around, and it'll now become about something completely different. That starts off with, well, what about when you did blah, blah, blah? Or what about, oh, you're saying that I do that. Well, how about what you do? So basically they are putting it back on you, and they create something else to argue about. So they change the topic, So you go from arguing about one thing to now you're arguing about something else. But what's actually happening is they're arguing you into a position where they feel more powerful. So just say you're on to something. Just say you've, I don't know, caught him out cheating, or lying, or, you're on to something. So you're arguing about that. He doesn't want to be arguing about that. So he will then steer the conversation, the argument, to something that he feels more confident and happier to argue about. So they steer you. They change the direction. So they change the topic, but they're actually changing the direction of the conversation to take it to a place where there's less chance that you're going to get them on something. They don't want to be pinned down. They don't want you to prove something. They don't want to have you be right. They don't want any of that. So they will steer you away from any potential of that happening and get you into arguing about something so ridiculous. But when you're caught up in the moment, you're so caught up and you don't really think it through. So you just argue along with, whatever ridiculous, you're now arguing about. And then wondering why nothing ever gets resolved and why it's always so confusing. All right, lovelies. Number 4 is they always get abusive. So arguments are not a safe place with narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths. It is, you kind of start an argument at your own peril. Potentially, it could get out of control very quickly. I mean, they have kind of this, hair-trigger temper, and it's in part due to their sense of superiority and how dare you challenge them. There's that. There's also this, they just think essentially that, that you don't have the right to challenge them. And when you do challenge them, they don't hear it for what it is. They turn it into something quite extreme. So you could say the most basic thing, like, did you remember to pay the bill? Did you remember to pay the electricity bill with that $100 that I left on the counter? Now, that's a simple enough question. Yes or no answer. And if it's a no, you'd expect someone to say, oh, no, I didn't. I forgot about it, or I'll do it tomorrow, whatever. Whereas in the situation with the narcissist, first of all, their reaction is, so what are you saying? Are you saying that that I stole the money? Is that what you're saying? They kind of, they go on the defensive. They get aggressive. They will challenge you about the most basic things. And so then you either have to be on the, offense? Offense, defense. Probably shouldn't use words that I don't understand. I mean, obviously I do understand them. In theory, I just get the two confused. The defense, that's the one. So you go on the defense. And, now you're trying to justify what you meant or how you said it. Having to tiptoe around someone with everyday normal communication is really challenging. I mean, what a pain in the ass to have to do that. So this is the thing. It becomes to the point where you just can't communicate about the dangerous topics. You can't challenge them anyway, because if you do, they might get angry. They might take it to the extreme. They might blow it all out of proportion. They could end your marriage over something so simple. And that's the reality. I mean, the other thing is there's also the potential for violence for those of them who are violent, and they all have the potential to be violent. This is the thing, once again, narcissistic injury involved. When they are narcissistically injured, their sense of grandiosity is punctured, and we must be punished in their mind. They have to right that wrong. They have to balance the scales of justice in their mind on that one. So, they can get abusive, and that makes arguing dangerous. Number 5, they gaslight and say, oh, I'm only joking. So, they don't argue fairly. They don't say, I'm sorry, babe. I'm sorry I didn't think about that, or I didn't mean to be rude, or, they don't care about the damage that they do. They will just do and say whatever they want, and they don't think twice about it. And then when you are wounded and when you are hurt by the hurtful and horrible things they've said, because they literally can go from, arguing about electricity bills to calling you a whore. So when that kind of abusive language and behavior starts, that hurts. We're normal, we're human beings, that hurts. So we get emotional. And then they say things like, lighten up, buttercup. I'm only joking. Why are you so sensitive? Getting your period? I mean, there is no end to the amount of disrespectful bullshit things they will say. Henceforth, it is just not safe to argue with them. It really isn't. And like I said, the gaslighting and, this, kind of, it's mental abuse. When they say, I didn't say that. Why are you twisting it? I didn't say that. Or you've forgotten what I said. Remember we had this conversation last week. They twist things to mess with your mind, basically, to make you unsure and uncertain of yourself so that you can't argue the point. All right, number 6. So they bring up past issues and problems. So once again, they won't just stay focused on what you're arguing about today. They will talk about what you did 6 years ago, 6 months ago, 6 years ago. They have no qualms at all because they're not really thinking about what you're saying. It's not about the topic that you're discussing. It's not about, finding a resolution or finding an outcome. It's about them feeling hurt, them feeling attacked, them feeling as though their superiority and their grandiosity is under threat. And so now they have to, as I said, put you back in your place. They will do it with whatever means available to them. So that means being abusive, being vulgar, being foul, they will do it. So number 7, they triangulate and bring in other third parties. So they'll say things like, it's not just me that says it. Susie from down the road, she said it just the other day about you. So now you're having to argue with them and Susie from down the road, who they're channeling. And it's amazing that, whoever they decide to bring into the argument is always on their side. They never ever say, oh, well, yeah, John agrees with you. John the butcher agrees with you. They always say, my mother, or your mother says, or your friends, or haven't you noticed that, the people at work. This is highly manipulative because the individuals aren't there to share their point of view. And number 2, there's no way of discerning whether or not it's true or, whether or not this person's made up bullshit. In hindsight, when you realize what you're dealing with, then obviously it is all bullshit. But at the time when you don't know what you're dealing with and you're just so caught up in the argument, in the moment, it's quite easy to feel ganged up upon and, to start to doubt yourself because, whoa, it's not just him that feels this way. Him and his mates and the woman down the road and his mother and the blokes at work, they all think it. They all think you're a bitch. So you can't argue with that, can you? All right, lovelies. Number 8, everything is always your fault. Remember that. They can't ever take any responsibility for anything. They don't hold themselves accountable for anything. Even if they cheated, it is your fault for not loving them enough or not giving them enough sex on their birthdays or, whatever excuse or justification. But everything is always your fault. So if you start an argument about something they've done, well, it's your fault. It's your fault for either noticing it in the first place? I mean, you should have just minded your own business, right? Or it's just your fault in general because whatever they've done is just a reaction to what you did in the first place, what you said and what you did. A classic example of this is for those of you who catch them out cheating, or talking to other women online, or talking to the ex, or whatever. The classic example of this is when they then turn around and say that it's your fault because you were snooping through his phone. So there you go. The whole thing, the argument, everything, it's all your fault because you don't trust him, because you've got trust issues, right? And then you start thinking, oh my God, maybe I do have trust issues because I'm going through his phone. Yes, but maybe if you weren't gaslit and manipulated and lied to and conned, your intuition wouldn't be telling you to go through his phone. But at the time, it seems really right what he's saying. Maybe you do have trust issues. Maybe you are paranoid and insecure. Maybe you have violated his trust going through the phone. Maybe he's totally justified in screwing around, seeking the comfort in the arms of another woman. And maybe everything that starts with the word maybe is not something I believe. Okay. Number 9. So they always lie, exaggerate, or tell half-truths. So quite literally, they will say black is white. And when you finally agree that, okay, black is white, no, you're right, black is white, then they'll say, no, I didn't say that. I said black is black, white is white. So then you say, oh, okay. Oh, I didn't realise. I thought you were saying black is white. Okay, so black is black and white is white. Okay. And then they'll change it again to a half-truth, No, that's not what I'm saying. You're not listening. Black is black and it's sometimes white too, right? And it all depends. And by this stage, you are feeling so confused that you wonder why you even opened your mouth to talk in the first place. And that's why they do it. They want to make sure that you learn a lesson from this. They want to make sure that the next time you dare to challenge them, that you remember how hard it was last time. Okay? They're trying to set a precedence so you don't ever do it again. Okay? They don't want you thinking. They don't want you questioning. They don't want you challenging them. They just want your obedience. They want you to be totally submissive to them, and they want you to take your abuse and take your punishment and deal with it. But just don't interrupt them. Don't ask them about it. They don't want to know about it. All right, number 10. Lucky number 10. All right, this is the last point. So the 10th point on why it is so confusing to argue with the narcissist is that they don't tell you how they feel. So you've got to remember that the narcissist and the psychopath and sociopath, they're very fear and shame based in their reality and the way they communicate. So they will always be, on the offense. They will always be aggressive. They will always be defiant, be angry. That those emotions feel are easier for them to feel. They don't want to feel vulnerable. They don't want to meet you halfway. They don't want to understand your point of view. They don't want you to understand how they actually feel. Okay? They just, as I said, they just want your submissiveness and for you to take the abuse that they're dishing out. But when you don't do that, and when you try and argue with them, they're not going to show you how they feel. They're going to show you a mask. They're going to put on a performance. It's going to all be an act. It's probably going to be based on one of their favourite movies that you have no idea about, but they love, and they saw this great scene where this man banged his fist on the table and he stormed out, and it was such an amazing scene, and that's kind of imprinted on their mind, and so that's the kind of behaviour that they will act out. They'll perform it. They'll be that macho man, banging his fist, throwing a bowl of food. I'm not taking this. I don't have to listen to you. you know, as they storm off, or some version of that, you know, but they're certainly not going to turn around and say, you know, oh, this is how I really feel, and it hurt me when you said this or when you did that. So they'll never be real in their communications. There's never real vulnerability. There's always just a mask and an act. All right, lovelies, that's my top 10 reasons of why it is so confusing to argue with a narcissist. So don't do it. Don't drive yourself crazy. They are not worth it. Get yourself narc-free, lovely. Narc-free for life. Okay. Take care, and I'll talk to you not tomorrow, but the day after.